Hey, yo, Fro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support, and make sure if you're a YouTube user, you enable notifications so you know every time we have a new episode go live. While you're at it, if you are sick and tired of spending $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game every year, stop immediately and go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create your wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users completely free. If you want to become a member of the Fro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shoutouts like my buddy Harold in St. Louis. Thank you, Harold, again for another great episode this week of Harold's Retro Review. Check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast and sign up today. And all of our $25 contributors get an opportunity to co-host an episode of Going Live with me. And for our $10 a month contributors, each month we will draw a name to also co-host an episode of Going Live. Hello, everyone. This is the big one. This is our go-home episode of the live Fro Wrestling Podcast ahead of WrestleMania. So much to get to. Even late breaking news this evening, things I'm very excited to talk about. We're going to get into all that a little bit later. Again, reiterating what happened on the last episode, for those who didn't pick up our last episode, The Rock winning our greatest wrestler of the Monday Night Wars tournament. Just wanted to get that out there for you. If you are a new listener to the Fro Wrestling Podcast, do me a favor, shoot over to our homepage at www.frowrestling.com and you get to see all the topics we're going to discuss here on the show. Everything that prepares you to be able to have great questions. If you log on to frowrestling.com or you go to Spreaker.com to find our podcast, Twitter, iTunes, all those locations, all the social media you could think of, there is a chat function. Your chat function, while we're live, you can put your questions in and I can respond to you right on the air. Make sure you put your name in there so I can give you credit for your questions, or even just for showing up on the show. I want to get you guys shout outs as often as I can. You guys are the reason we do this. If you have questions, comments, concerns, things you want me to look into, look up, or talk about, make sure you shoot over either before an episode or afterwards for the next episode to the Fro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160, where you can give us your questions, your comments, all that stuff into a text messaging system. You speak to the phone converts it and shoots me the text, and I can get your questions into an upcoming episode. Guys, this is an exciting week. For those who are diehard wrestling fans, there has been so much going on this week in wrestling that it blows your mind. It's amazing how people always ask the question, will anybody ever compete with WWE? And the answer is an emphatic no. Not because they can't put on a better product. I don't believe that at all. Those who listen to this podcast often know that I'm a strong proponent of the New Japan Pro Wrestling product. I love Ring of Honor. I even think Impact Wrestling has been fantastic lately. But the reality is this. There is nothing else like the WWE and WrestleMania. And what I mean by that is, think about the wrestling that has gone on just this week. Do you think that all the indie promotions around the country had major events this week because they just wanted to? No, they did that because WWE's WrestleMania is the biggest attraction of talent at any point in time all year long. And it's a beautiful thing. If you are a huge wrestling fan, there is so much to watch from this week. Evolve had Evolve 102 and 103. There was Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor. There was great matches on Access Television for New Japan Pro Wrestling. AAW, Joey Janela's wrestling, Spring Break #2. I hope he brings his show back every year. He did a great job this year again. Everybody, CZW, House of Hardcore, you name the indie promotion. If they are remotely important in the wrestling business, they had a show this week during WrestleMania weekend in New Orleans. Everybody went to New Orleans. See, back in the day, WrestleMania would attract a crowd for the WrestleMania card. It's not like that anymore. With the internet and social media the way it is now, everyone migrates to whatever town WrestleMania is taking place in, and every promotion in the world holds some kind of card at some venue. Even the Impact Wrestling Lucha Underground cross-promotional card was phenomenal. We've got NXT TakeOver that is on right now. So if you're listening to me, I'm kind of shocked. I think you'd be on TakeOver. I'm not chasing you away by all means. I love having you on listening live. But, I mean, the matches that have been going on are insane. You know, the big thing coming out so far tonight at NXT TakeOver, Adam Cole winning the first ever North American Championship, and Ember Moon losing the NXT Women's Championship to Shayna Baszler. Great night of action already at NXT. It is amazing what everybody in the wrestling industry is doing. In this episode, we're going to get to the latest WrestleMania betting odds and my predictions. That will come at the end. But in the meantime, the major breaking news is there has officially been an Undertaker spotting in New Orleans. The Undertaker has arrived, and that is huge. And the reason for that is we actually had legitimate people who were concerned that we weren't going to see the Undertaker show up, that this was really a shoot, that he really wasn't showing up, and that's not the case. And the reality is, I don't think too many of the diehard fans really thought that he was going to no-show. I understand why he would ride off into the sunset. I get that. But the reality is, WrestleMania, at least this year, will not be WrestleMania without The Undertaker. The Undertaker is really the key to this event because they're taking a big risk here. They're taking a situation where they have nobody promoted for this match. And the fans are buying into it anyways. If The Undertaker didn't show up at WrestleMania this year, we would have a huge issue on our hands. And I'm thrilled to death that he's now there. So, The Undertaker clearly going to be involved in his match with John Cena. It's a great angle. I don't know if they're going to actually have the match or if they're going to have the face-off leading to a match next year at Mania 35. Keep in mind, people, for those who want this match this year or those who say I never want to have it again, if you don't want it this year at all, it's probably because you feel like both of these talents are so past their prime that it's not a good match right now. The reality is WWE has booked John Cena to look very weak for the last 9 months. I get that. The Undertaker, he just had double hip replacement surgery only less than a year ago. If he's not ready to go, I'd rather they waited a year. Give us a face-off. Give us a little bit of a twinge of some kind of physicality, or do it like John Cena and The Rock did a few years back and just agree to meet next year. Whatever it is, at least let him appear and let there be something. I don't feel like John Cena is saying, do something. They have to. WWE has to do something. The other big update this week was Brock Lesnar. It is all but confirmed he will be returning to UFC. Dana White will be at WrestleMania this year. He says he's there because Ronda Rousey wants him there for her first match, and I believe that. But you could not convince me that him being there for Brock's potential last match in WWE isn't significant. It's huge. And now we know Brock Lesnar at some point this year will fight for the UFC. His contract is going to expire after WrestleMania. What I have questions about is, why was there conversation about Brock's contract being able to be extended till August? If that truly was the case, then WWE is a fool if they don't extend it to August and have him do that match with Bobby Lashley, who I expect will show up at WrestleMania in some capacity, and if not, he'll be on Raw the next night. My concern there is if Bobby Lashley slips in and takes the Brock Lesnar position in the company. One mixed martial artist switches out for another. I think that's a horrible thing to do to Bobby Lashley. He should have the match with Brock. I don't think they're going to do it. I think it's too late. But if they find a way to pull this off at the last minute, there was only conversation only a week ago that Brock Lesnar actually wants to come back to WWE and was using UFC as a ploy to try to get more money out of WWE. But hopefully things get worked out. The concern there is he does still want to fight in the octagon, and WWE this time does not want to let him do that. I get where their concerns come from, but the reality of the situation is I would never let a premium talent get away. And I know there's people out there saying, goodbye Brock, good riddance. His matches aren't up to par with the ones that he had back in the day with Kurt Angle. I get all that. He is an attraction whether you love him or hate him. If you hate him and you want him to go, that's all the more reason for WWE to keep him here, to annoy you. So you'll pay your money to go see somebody face him and hopefully beat him. If he stays, he needs to put over Bobby Lashley now that Lashley supposedly has a new 3-year contract. And he needs to put over Braun Strowman. That is huge. I'm sorry, people. If you told me I have a choice, Brock can go away and never come back and he can go kick rocks, or he could come back for a year and face Braun Strowman and lose clean. Braun Strowman is the most organically and naturally grown talent WWE has had in years. And it is time that Braun got the big wins over the big talents. If he loses the Universal Championship tomorrow night, which everyone expects, then Braun Strowman should still have an opportunity to have a clean pinfall victory over him. If they don't want to give Braun the championship, have him beat Brock the next night on Raw, right before he leaves, if that's what you got to do. But you got to do something to put Braun over, because Brock has been spoon-fed this cushy schedule, and every piece of talent you've put in front of him, he's mowed over. It's time to do the right thing if you're Brock Lesnar and WWE and put Braun over. Who is slated to be the next SmackDown general manager? It's up for conversation. Everybody keeps floundering back and forth who it could be. This week, interestingly enough to me, yes, I know there's a big contingency of people who want it to be Hulk Hogan. But the really interesting thing I heard this week is the conversation that it may actually end up being Jeff Jarrett. The new WWE Hall of Famer may be considered to be the replacement SmackDown general manager. I don't know what that does for Global Force Wrestling. I don't think it matters what it does to Global Force Wrestling at this point, but I'll be curious to see who they slate in that spot whenever they use whatever storyline to get him to get Daniel Bryan off the show. I see John the Sports Guy is here. He's listening in. He's at a CCW show in McAllisterville, Pennsylvania, and he's still tuning into the podcast. John, I love you, brother. I really do. I love your devotion to my podcast. I appreciate that. John is one of my absolute diehard fans. He and Harold are like the lifeblood of the podcast. I can always count on them for two things. One, tuning in, and two, they give some amazing, amazing feedback and conversation all week, all day, every day, and they're like my brothers from other mothers. They're fantastic. So, the sad note of the week. I haven't done a podcast where I discuss this, so I'm going to put it out there now. As a child growing up, I remember watching and being enamored with managers in wrestling. I was not privy to the 70s tag team scene when Jimmy and Jerry Valiant were the WWF Tag Team Champions. I did not have the opportunity to watch that firsthand. I do remember as a child that I used to go to the Rite Aid pharmacy near my home, and they had VHS tapes for rent, and there was one that was the history of the WWF Tag Team Championship, or history of the WWF Tag Team Championship. And so I rented that video the one time and I watched it, and it literally was like a chronology of every tag team that ever held the tag team championship. And that was my first exposure to the Valiant brothers as the WWF Tag Team Champions. And what was fascinating to me was, this is all the way back in the 70s. This is before the entrance music. No pyro, none of that stuff, but they just had like this charisma about them. Now, as many people know, Jimmy Valiant went on to become the Boogie Woogie Man in the NWA with the big black and blue striped pants and the crazy beard and the bandana on the head, and I loved him too. In the 80s, I thought he was so entertaining. I watched him firsthand. But what I was enamored with Luscious Johnny Valiant was when he came in as a manager, he managed some of the people who I migrated to. I remember when he was managing Brutus the Barber Beefcake. I found it to be awesome. I thought it gave Brutus Beefcake this loud talking, in-your-face personality, and I loved it. I'm one of those people who, when I was a kid, I already liked the bad guys. I thought the bad guys were cool. They were edgy. Jimmy Valiant put out some tweets this week in retrospect of the life of his what are we going to say, kayfabe brother, Johnny Valiant, who passed away this week at the age of 71 years old here in Pennsylvania, unfortunately, due to an automobile accident. Thoughts and prayers and well wishes to the entire Valiant family. It's a sad week when you lose someone who is so charismatic, so influential, and who guided many, many careers in his career as a manager and was entertaining as a performer. For those, a lot of people don't even realize, he was a manager for Hulk Hogan, manager for Brutus Beefcake, Greg the Hammer Valentine. This is the guy who originally crafted the Dream Team that won the Tag Team Championship. Ended up losing them to the British Bulldogs at WrestleMania 2. This is the guy who was behind that. He had such an impact, and at 71, it just seems like it's way too soon. We say that a lot in the wrestling business. These people are just gone way too soon, and we've lost another great one. Big announcement today from Triple H that the WWE United Kingdom tournament will return this year in June. We're looking at the 18th and 19th two-day tournament. I don't know what the format will be, but I'm assuming they're going to have a tournament and have the winner face the United Kingdom champion, Pete Dunne. That would be the way I would imagine they would book it, and maybe have that championship match at a pay-per-view or as a kickoff to an expansion for a television program. They need to do something. I know they have dates blocked off in December for the United Kingdom to try to videotape a show and kick that off, but really, let's be honest. We haven't seen the United Kingdom Championship defended since last summer at TakeOver, it's ridiculous. We need to see the championship defended on a regular basis for it to have any credibility. And this tournament will be the start, hopefully, of much, much more for the organization and for that championship. The big word this week about Rusev. Rusev, whether people realize this or not, is pushing so much merchandise. It's really caught the eyes of WWE. And he's unhappy. He's unhappy because despite the fact that he's one of the highest merchandise sellers, he's being moved down the card still. He's not being used in a way that maximizes his potential. Think about when he came into the company. When he came up from NXT. He was the unstoppable force. Nobody could beat him. He went undefeated for like 9 months. It took, putting him against Super Cena for him to finally lose. That's the guy that Rusev still should be. WWE needs as many believable challengers to their World and Universal Championship as they can get. And right now, there's not a lot of them. Let's face it, people. If Roman Reigns wins the championship tomorrow, is anybody who's out there could possibly defeat him for the title? He's already faced Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe, Braun Strowman, like it's a who's who of who he's already faced, and come out on top of. So who do you have? Are you going to bring somebody up from NXT? Are you going to bring up Aleister Black and have him do it? I could buy that, but I don't think they're ready for that. Are you going to bring somebody up like Drew Galloway? Whatever you do, you have nobody in position to challenge for that unless AJ Styles also loses his championship and he moves to Raw and then faces Roman Reigns. But even that match has been done before. We need top flight established championship contenders that are believable to be able to defeat the champion at any point in time. That is what made championships predictable or less predictable and more prestigious in the 80s and 90s. You didn't know who was going to win matches. When Mick Foley won the WWE Championship for the first time, it was a shocker, but then when you let it digest and you let it sink in, you could see how it came about. You could see the cultivation of his character and why they gave him a championship run. Who can you possibly do that with right now? They've buried Braun Strowman, putting him in a tag team match, so he's not the guy. Samoa Joe's been off TV and hurt so many times. Do you really want to take a chance that he stays healthy and make him your number one attraction? I don't really think so. I'm sure they'll probably do that if Roman wins the championship. But you need more. And later on this week, people, just so you know, an article will be going up on Infro's Corner at www.frowrestling.com. Thank you to the 160 new subscribers who popped on to the webpage and checked out the last article. I appreciate every one of you. That's awesome. Please spread the word. The articles that I put up, I am not one person who enjoys recycling everybody's news on my webpage. I'll do it on the air because you guys give me feedback and stuff and emails and things like that. By the way, thank you to every person this week. I got 4 or 5 people who sent me fan mail. That was weird for me. I've never had fans in my life for anything. And I had 4 or 5 emails from fans. Thank you. You're awesome. You make this really... This week was a special feeling, because you guys gave me that during WrestleMania week of all cases. So thank you to those people who sent that. That was very nice of you, and I really, really appreciate it. Back to the wrestling news, though. One of the storylines that's really irritating me is the news is that The Rock was actually penciled in for a whole segment. So they were going to do something like a guitar concert of sorts with Elias, with potentially the Road Dogg, Jeff Jarrett, The Rock. Some people talked about maybe they pay and bring in the Honky Tonk Man. All these guys to come in with guitars and do a whole bit where they're kind of working off each other. No physicality. The Rock is shooting a movie. He can't do that. But he could have a guitar off. And somehow the plans have fallen through. Just like other plans we heard of this week, where Batista came out and made it known that he was originally slated to be the tag team partner for Ronda Rousey, and that Triple H never got back to him about the details. I actually would have liked that angle better, and here's why. For those who've tuned into the podcast for an extended period of time, you know that I said it back in January. Seth Rollins versus Kurt Angle was a money match, something we may never get to see now. I would have much rather seen Seth versus Kurt Angle, and I would have loved to have seen Batista and Ronda Rousey against Triple H and Stephanie, because there already was a built-in storyline with Batista and Triple H. We didn't have to cultivate this new thing with Kurt Angle and Triple H. It would have been, in my opinion, a little more organic. I get the whole fighting the authority thing, but we've been fighting the authority for 5 years now. It's old news. Move past it. So we lose the Rock's angle. We lose Batista from the show. And I don't care if people love or hate Batista. It just made sense for him to be a part of that. And then it's just scrapped. Really frustrating. Brackets and talent were announced earlier this week, and then they held some of the greatest tournaments this week for all the NXT Gold and the United Kingdom Gold. And we got to see talents that don't typically appear on WWE programming, and I love it because it's a doorway that WWE is stepping through, allowing non-contracted wrestlers to come into their shows, and you're really taking a risk there. What are you going to do if an outside talent decides to go into business for themselves? What are you going to do when they pin somebody and there's nothing you can do about it? They're taking a chance, and it's a great chance because it shows that they're willing to work with a company like Evolve. They brought the Evolve Championship to Access and had it defended. You know, the champion retained, defeating Cassius Ohno. Great match, though. And I love it. Thank you, WWE, for doing something that really is fresh in a business that is not typically very fresh. I do want to give a little bit of reaction to the WWE Hall of Fame. I want to say, first off, somebody asked me if I was annoyed that the Dudleys were inducted first. No, I can understand why that question would come out there. I would be honest with you. I think the Dudleys could have headlined. I really do. When you talk about the greatest of anything, many people last night were saying that the Dudleys were the greatest tag team in the history of wrestling. I'm actually begrudgingly going to agree, and here's why I know that's controversial. There's all these Hart Foundation fans and Road Warrior fans and the Steiner brothers. Nobody did it in as many places, for as many different promotions, and as many times as the Dudleys in a generation where tag team wrestling was not the emphasis of the business, and they stayed together with the exception of short little periods where WWE was testing out splitting the two up. They stayed together essentially their entire career. And those two guys I look up to immensely for everything they've brought to the business. I thought their speech was phenomenal, but I'm fine with them going on first because they automatically got me sucked into the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to all the Hall of Fame inductees, including Hillbilly Jim. Okay, I'll say it. Hillbilly Jim, when you reflect on all the things he's done for WWE outside the ring, and then you combine the time that he was wrestling and the people he was engaged with, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Big John Studd, King Kong Bundy, those are guys who are marquee talents, and he was in the matches with or beside them. Tag team partner for Hulk Hogan in many matches, tag team partner for Andre the Giant in a few matches, and opponent of both Andre, Bundy, and Big John Studd. That's a guy who WWE trusted to be in the ring with a lot of big talents. Now, I know when they first announced him, I was a little confused, but at this point, I've come to terms with it, and I'm accepting of his induction, especially if Coco Beware is in the Hall of Fame. Okay, I said it. I got it out there. By the way, if you didn't get a chance yet, yesterday we posted our latest interview. I was waiting for this for so long. He was so gracious. Nick Aldis, also known as Magnus, the current NWA World Heavyweight Champion, former Global Force Wrestling Champion, former Impact Wrestling Champion. And be honest with you, this one was a big one for me because I am a die-hard Nick Aldis fan. His interview is in 2 parts. They are both available on our website or on YouTube. By all means, check those out. He was such a great interview, and you could tell from his interview how passionate he is about Doug Williams, who really helped him early in his career, the amount of respect he has for Samoa Joe, and all the input that Sting and Kurt Angle had in getting him both to Impact Wrestling and to helping him become a member of the Main Event Mafia, and really putting him in position to challenge AJ Styles for the Impact Championship when AJ was leaving the company. He's very candid about things that frustrated him in the business. I love it because it really was a shoot interview. There were moments where I was uncomfortable because he was complaining about a certain element of the business or somebody who didn't do what they were supposed to do. He had a great analysis of all his different factions he's been a member of and things of that nature. So check that out if you get the chance. It's awesome. Go to FroWrestling.com today and listen to the shoot interview with Nick Aldis, also known as Magnus. The other thing for me that really I'm thrilled to hear this week is that Lucha Underground, after being gone for so long, has announced that on June 13th, Season 4 of Lucha Underground will go live. We'll check into El Rey Network. I can't wait to see that. They've lost some talents, but they also still have a depth at their roster positions in talent, and I can't wait to see, Penta OM and Johnny Mundo and all those guys get back in the ring and give us just great matches. Don't get me wrong, these guys wrestle all the time, but it's not televised. People don't get to see Phoenix, Penta OM, Drago, all those talents. They don't get to see that on a regular basis. I can't wait to see Lucha Underground back on television. Another big news this week, the Evolve Championship changed hands this week. Matt Riddle ends Zack Sabre Jr.'s over 400-day reign. That is huge news. Matt Riddle is one of the best indie talents in the world, and he's one of those guys I pray gets an opportunity someday to debut in WWE, but I'm beginning to question whether or not that'll happen. He has some questionable views about the use of medicinal marijuana and recreational marijuana, which may keep him out of WWE, but at the end of the day, he's such an incredibly talented wrestler. WWE will be missing out if they never get a chance to work with him. Another conversation that came up this week was about who is the highest paid WWE employee right now, and to some people's surprise, it's not Brock anymore. Brock, with that huge fat contract and all those t-shirts they sell for Suplex City, has fallen behind John Cena once again. John Cena takes over the top spot for earnings. I'm not talking about merchandise sales. We already knew that. But John Cena earned over $10 million last year. Brock Lesnar coming in around $6.5 million. The highest paid wrestler last year in WWE, John Cena. No surprise, really. If you think about it, no matter what you think of his matches, the little kids love him. They buy more t-shirts, wristbands, hats, and everything else of him than anybody. So maybe the parents ought to start watching through the kids' eyes. What are they watching for? His same pattern set of moves that he does every single match? Of course he does. But there's only one person who does it like he does it. I remember listening to an interview one time with Hulk Hogan talking about, his finish is 3 punches, a foot, and a leg drop. But it's how he does it. And it's right. When you have your set, you have your set. John Cena has added things to his repertoire over the years. He's evolved as a wrestler, and he is fantastic. Let's give him his due. Last element of the evening, before we get to the card predictions and the latest betting odds, Dolph Ziggler, it was reported earlier this year, had signed a new contract, that $1.5 million contract everybody was talking about. Apparently not the case. His contract comes up soon. The contract offer is out there, but he has not accepted it, and he is not technically locked into WWE long-term yet. It'll be curious to see if he goes that direction sometime soon. But one of the things he said in an interview with one of the, and I apologize, I know I watched it on eWrestlingNews.com, so there's your shout-out, eWrestling News. Please don't hate me for recycling your info. They're a great news source. Check them out. But the understanding now is that he was very frustrated that 99 out of 100 times he loses, and that hasn't changed. So now he's reconsidering whether or not he wants to sign that huge contract. Let's get to our WrestleMania predictions and the betting odds. Right now, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, the odds-on favorites to win. There are two that are tied. Big Cass and Elias are the favorites to win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Samoa Joe comes in third, Dolph Ziggler fourth. Those are your top four odds right now for the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. My prediction is that we will see Big Cass walk out as the winner of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. What a way to bring him back to the company. On the women's side of things, the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal, the odds-on favorite is Sasha Banks. She's going away as the favorite to win. Bayley, Carmella, Becky Lynch right behind her. There's a little gap there, and then they're the next three. My honest opinion, I know Ember Moon is actually the fifth highest odds. After losing the championship tonight, I don't see them immediately bouncing her into there and winning that. However, I'm not really sold on Sasha Banks winning either. I could easily see one of these things where it comes down to Sasha Banks and Bayley fighting with each other at the end, and Carmella dumping the two of them, or Becky Lynch really, dumping the two of them over the top rope. My prediction, though, is Carmella wins the Women's Battle Royal. We're going to move on to the Fatal 4-Way for the WWE United States Championship. The favorite right now is Randy Orton. But the second favorite, which I find fascinating, is the aforementioned, somewhat disgruntled Rusev, who apparently asked for his release back in February, or at least joked about it on Twitter, and that's why he's in this match, is because he was upset with his current place on the card. Now he's in the United States Championship Tournament, and he's one of the favorites to win. Jinder Mahal has the worst odds of winning, which is good, not because I don't want to see Jinder Mahal win another championship, but because he had a whole year with the title. Let him go. Let somebody else have a championship for a change. I don't really want to see Randy Orton walk out with it either. I'd rather Rusev or Bobby Roode. Right now, my prediction, Rusev walks out as the United States champion. You know why? Because of all that merchandise. Money talks. WWE has proven that time and again. I'm going with Rusev. The mixed tag team match, Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey, the overwhelming favorites to defeat Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. And when I'm doing my predictions here, this is a match I have a tough time with. I know they're the heavy favorite. Right now, Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle are minus 850 favorite to win the match. That means to win $100, you have to bet $850. That's obnoxious. But here's the thing. Triple H and Stephanie have a reputation for not allowing other talents to get over on them. You could see a scenario where Triple H flexes his muscle and picks up the pin over Kurt Angle, thereby securing Ronda Rousey the loss but not the pinfall. If that happens, I think the people in New Orleans may riot. The odds-on favorites, Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey, are going to walk out with a submission victory over Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. Rousey will make Stephanie McMahon tap, and there's actually betting odds on what the finish of the match is going to be, and the odds-on favorite, of course, is the submission. In the triple threat match for the WWE Intercontinental Championship, Finn Balor, The Miz, and Seth Rollins, the odds are close, but Finn Balor is the slight favorite, and I'm good with that. I think Finn Balor would be a great champion. Unfortunately, I'm going against the betting odds here. I'm going with the lowest odds, which is Seth Rollins. I think Seth walks out as the Intercontinental Champion. They're going to give him his Grand Slam because you gave it to Roman, and let's face it, Seth Rollins is a significantly better talent than Roman Reigns, even though they want to cram Roman Reigns down our throat. So I'm going with Seth Rollins as the new Intercontinental Champion. For the WWE Cruiserweight Championship, Cedric Alexander versus Mustafa Ali. Cedric Alexander, the heavy favorite, and I'm going against the odds again. Mustafa Ali walks out WWE Cruiserweight Champion. That's my prediction. For the Raw Women's Championship, Nia Jax, the heavy favorite over Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss has held that title a long time. It is time to transition that title to the woman who's been the face of power in the WWE Raw Women's division. Nia Jax, I agree with the odds makers, will walk out the new Raw Women's Champion. The SmackDown Women's Championship, Asuka, the minus 1,000 favorite, meaning you got to bet $1,000 to win 100. And guess what? They're right. Asuka will win the championship because she needs that championship so that she and Ronda Rousey can be the first women ever to headline WrestleMania 35. My prediction, Asuka walks out as women's champion. I'm going to do this in the order that I think they should be done. In the match between John Cena and The Undertaker is the odds-on favorite to defeat John Cena should the match take place. We all have very strong opinions. As I said at the onset of the show, The Undertaker's been spotted in New Orleans. The match is going to happen. If it's not a match, fine. Then you can forget my predictions. But in the meantime, I predict that The Undertaker upsets John Cena. And I say upset because, let's face it, The Undertaker is significantly further past his prime than John Cena. John Cena actually will still continue to contribute to WWE, yes, in much less frequency than anybody would like. But the reality is, The Undertaker is going to contribute maybe this last time. Will he come back in the future? I don't know. I guess it depends on how his hip feels. But you couldn't convince me he's coming back after this match. I think this is it. This is the last one. It should have been the last one last year, the way he went out. I think the only reason we're getting this is because he didn't have a marquee match, and this is the marquee match. I predict The Undertaker will defeat John Cena. As I said, I'm doing this in the order I would book them. For the WWE Universal Championship, Roman Reigns, the minus 850 favorite. Here's the thing. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm shocked that he's not a minus 1,200 or minus 5,000 or something of that nature. Roman Reigns has, for the last year, been built to win this championship. Brock Lesnar is the heavy underdog at a plus 450. Bet $100 to win $450. But here's the thing. This really comes down to whether or not Brock is staying or going. And I'd hate to see a situation where Brock was going again at a WrestleMania, just like at WrestleMania 20. The fans already know it and they start booing. I think if WWE was smart, they would extend Brock Lesnar. They would keep Brock Lesnar. And they would have Brock Lesnar win the Universal Championship match at WrestleMania and go on to Raw tomorrow night to brag about leaving for UFC and have Bobby Lashley obliterate him and challenge him and then lead to a match at SummerSlam between the two where then Brock can ride off into the sunset then. Okay? That's what I would do. Unfortunately, I'm not the one booking this. Yes, Roman Reigns will win the Universal Championship. That's our prediction. And in what we think, here at the Fro Wrestling Podcast, should be the main event, Shinsuke Nakamura is the minus 450 favorite to win over AJ Styles for the WWE Championship. I am not a fan of the booking, but I understand what's going to happen. Nakamura will win the championship because Styles is headed to Raw. So my prediction is Nakamura does win the championship, but only because they're going to be moving AJ because he is now creeping up on John Cena for merchandise sales, and you want him on your main card, your main go-to program. You don't want to have him being on the second-rate show that's not getting the ratings. AJ Styles has the opportunity to draw in the crowd that John Cena pretty much was drawing in for the last 15 years. And AJ's not going to be wrestling forever, so you better capitalize on it now if you want anything to be working for you going forward. That's all the time we have for this, the go-home episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast ahead of WrestleMania. Check back with us next episode. We'll run down all the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects that we use in our shows. Today's podcast sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you're looking for your next career move and you're considering college, university life, or just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking the time with us tonight. And if you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.sportsjunkies101.com for their articles on the world of professional wrestling. And if you want some editorials by me, go to frowrestling.com and click on In Fro's Corner. Until next time, everybody, please do me a favor. Enjoy WrestleMania, all 7 hours plus. And I will see you guys on Twitter throughout the show. Please check us out on Twitter and give us your comments all throughout WrestleMania. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we see Brock Lesnar retain and Lashley obliterate on Monday night. Take care. Have a good night.